Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos. We're broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. This is our continued coverage of the Richard Allen trial. I believe this is day 16. Richard Allen is accused of killing Abby and Libby in Delphi on February 13th, 2017. I think we'll start the way we have been with the recap. I'm seeing what appears to be Dr. Walla versus Dr. Westcott. So I definitely want your opinion. What do you make of this battle between psychologists? We've recently heard from Richard Allen's sister, half sister to be exact, and his daughter. And I believe today they are going to be hearing testimony from Kathy. Welcome to the Sleuth Crew, Stacy Skinner. Welcome. Welcome in, everybody. Tina Stair, Melissa Wildcard, CJK, Growing Crazy, Patty, Brad from Outside of the Grid, Nana73, Metal Mama Michelle, good to see you, Growing Crazy, Jerry, Jill Moser, Cindy Lean, Miss Dog Lover, Beth, Sharon, welcome in, Pipers, Jody Lynn, Jacqueline, good to see you. How's it going, Mustang? Lovely Nurse, good morning. Jules, welcome in. Looks like we got a flex here by Sensei. Hello, Sleuth, mods, and chat. Keep up the good work. Thank you for your support, Sensei. We got to hit him.
We do not train to be merciful here. Mercy is for the weak. Here, on the street, in competition.
Yes, Sensei. Welcome in, April. All right, so today's recap is mainly, I pulled it from Wish TV's live blog. They've been doing a great job. Some of the information I pulled from Twitter as well. Or X, sorry. You got it, Sensei. Yes, Sensei. What's going on, CJK? Kitty Cat, welcome in. All right, so this is a brief summary of day 15 in the Delphi murders trial. Monday's court session featured testimonies from Richard Allen's sister, daughter, neuropsychologist, and several others. The jury also viewed 2 video compilations of footage taken from Allen's security camera inside his cell at Westville Correctional Facility. The first witness was Dr. Polly Westcott, a neuropsychologist based out of Carmel who performed a psychological evaluation on Allen while in prison. And I might have that date here somewhere. Okay, so she was hired by the defense May of 2023. Westcott shared the process of her assessment, which she performed over 2 days. She came to 6 conclusions. Allen has extensive history of mental health issues. Allen was not faking or exaggerating his symptoms. Allen is slower to understand, process, and respond to things. Allen experienced a complete mental health decrease in Westville. Alan has major depressive disorder and slipped into psychosis due to stress. Alan's brain chemistry was changed while in prison due to no contact with wife and family. Well, one thing that Dr. Monica Walla and Dr. Polly Westcott agree on is that Richard Allen had what is called dependent personality disorder. That's the one thing that they agree on. Other than that, they're complete opposites of each other. We'll pause there for a moment. Good to see you, Olivia, too. Miss Smala. Always good to see you, Beth. Captain Ravioli. I've decided to be your president today, Ravioli for everyone. Well, it depends. What kind of ravioli are we talking about here? Good evening, Yonder. Good evening. Christine, good to see you. What's going on, Andy? Yet he knew missing the fourth meal would be reported losing weight on purpose to look frail. Yeah, that shows more calculation than crazy, right? Also, if you go and look at some of these documentaries on solitary confinement, one thing you notice is that that's how they get attention. So once you start, going kind of crazy in there, like, oh man, I'm feeling so lonely and this is driving me crazy. Well, you need attention. So you start tearing out pages from your books. You start urinating all over the floor. And even then, it's not enough, right? You're like, okay, well, I have their attention. They're watching me now, but they're not coming in here. They're not taking me out of this shitty room, this tiny room. I want to go take a shower. So what I need to do is I need to start banging my head because now I know that the rules are unless I'm hurting myself, they won't intervene. So it's like a pattern. It's like crazy behavior. Then you get the attention. And then once you have the attention, you start beating your head against the wall. Sounds like torture to me. Good to see you, GP. Vegas Gorby, welcome in. Good to see you, Hiawatha. Yeah, the thing is you could be guilty or innocent, and you could react. Who knows how you'll react to solitary confinement? It has nothing to do with your innocence or your guilt. Welcome in, Melissa Wildcard. Stop that right now. Says remember to vote. Good morning. I was an early voter. See, I don't know if he knew exactly what he was doing. It's going to take these professionals to kind of argue it out. I think the bigger question is, can you add in a little bit of truth even though you are suffering from psychosis? So let's say you're trying to hold in this dark secret, right? Like I'm a child killer and I've been keeping that from the world. Nobody knows. I haven't shared this with anybody. And now you're under, you're under these conditions in solitary confinement and you're suffering from psychosis now. Will those dark secrets begin to kind of slip out, maybe mixed in with a little bit of, I don't know, wacky talk? Maybe a little bit of fact with some of the craziness? I think that's the bigger question. What's up, Cindy? Says, I voted. Elizabeth Jones from Scotland. Here, I got something for you.
He wasn't right in the hat.
It's mine. Good job, Cindy. Is the extreme stress due to isolation, prison, or to the nightmare of how he murdered two children? I think both. What if it is the isolation that's um, keeping him from holding in this dark secret? You know, he's going crazy, so now it's out. Pandora's out of the box. Stacy says, I voted early as well, Sleuth. Hey, welcome in, Loxy. Freedom. Yep, that's what I'm trying to get across to everybody, Sharon. Both can be true. Welcome in, April. Lorraine Perez, good to see you. All right, let's continue on here. She also mentioned that Alan has had severe anxiety and depression through his childhood and adulthood and has struggled with suicidal ideation. She also commented on previous reports from Dr. Monica Walla, Alan's psychologist in Westville, saying that Walla's summaries of Alan's murder confessions were story-like and that videos of Alan around the same time weren't logical. Following questions from the prosecution about Alan's mental health, the jury chimed in with their own questions. One of the questions asked was, if Alan was depressed as a child, would it cause him to commit crimes as an adult? Westcott said no, and it depended on the personality type. After a short break, the jury viewed two video compilations of footage taken from the security camera inside Alan's solitary confinement cell. The courtroom TV was faced away from the gallery, so only the jury, Special Judge Fran Gull, and the witness stand could see. The defense and prosecution had to move closer to see. Richard Allen did not watch the videos. I wonder if that was by choice or did they just not include him? I feel like if anybody should be watching the videos, it would be him, so it must have been his choice. Maybe he waived his right. We'll pause right there for a second. What's going on, Jacqueline Mustang? Thank you. The psychologist juror could have big impact on the others depending on which position they support. Yeah, they might look to her, for validation. Like, which doctor do we look to? Let's ask our own doctor. Let's ask the jury doctor. Good to see you, Sharon. Miss Mala. the less of two evils. The lesser of two evils. Okay, so Richard Allen did not watch the videos. The videos ended, leaving jurors with raised brows and throwing glances at Allen. Yikes. State prosecutor Nick McClellan commented that the defense intern Max Baker, who had compiled the footage, showed what he viewed as his worst condition in Westville, and that Baker showed the jury the video to try to show that Richard Allen is the victim. Look, it's Richard Allen that's the victim. It's not Abby and Libby. Look what they've done to him. Sometimes that works. A back and forth ensued between Baker, McClelland, and defense attorneys Brad Rosie. Rosie eventually jumped in to ask, you picked what you picked to show them the truth? Baker said, yes. After multiple objections and another snippy back and forth, court recessed for lunch around 12:22 p.m. Court's afternoon session began with testimonies from Jamie Jones, that's Richard Allen's half sister, and Brittany Zapanta, Allen's daughter. Before Jones was called to speak, Judge Gall said the report from Westcott was totem pole hearsay. You hear that? Totem pole. And explained that unless the state can cite specific hearsay, she'll admit the report. What's up, Truffles? All right, let's hear what Richard Allen's sister and daughter had to say. The jury entered the courtroom and Jones approached the witness stand. Jones said Richard Allen was 5 years her senior and they lived together through childhood. She told the jury Allen never touched her inappropriately. She told defense attorney Jennifer Auger she loved her brother but would never lie for him. So remember, guys, I told you that. The entire purpose of bringing his sister and his daughter as witnesses is specifically to remove the speculation from the jury that he molested them. So really, that's all they asked him on the stands. Were you molested by Richard Allen? No. Okay, let's get that thought out of the jury's mind. Prosecutor James Luttrell started his cross-examination asking Jones if the name Chris rang a bell. Remember Chris? The name Chris, he kept mentioning that during his quote-unquote confessions. Chris was my best friend. I'm sorry I molested Chris. So right here you have James Luttrell during his cross-examination hits her. Then does the name Chris ring a bell? You know, that's the question we all have, right? Like, who is Chris? Auger objected as they were discussing other neighborhood kids while Allen and Jones were growing up. The objection was sustained and Luttrell moved on. So they didn't get to the bottom of this. Like, who's Kevin, who's Chris, and who's Dawn? Remember, during his confessions, he mentioned these other names and that he had molested them. He'd molested his sister, his daughter, maybe, right? He wasn't sure. Okay, Jones left the stand and was replaced by Richard Allen's daughter, Brittany Zapanta. Allen was reportedly nodding his head as she took the stand. Zapanta said she moved out of the family home in 2015 for a job. She attended Ball State, then went to Indianapolis. She currently works in urgent care. The defense asked her the same question they asked Jones. Did your father molest you? And would you lie for him? Zapanta said no to both questions. Luttrell stepped in for his cross, asking if she and her father went to the Monon Trail and the High Bridge often. Auger objected to both questions. The first was sustained, the second overruled. Zapanta then said she went to the bridge with her dad, but only crossed it once or twice. She asked if Allen changed his appearance after she left for Ball State, and she said no. Luttrell asked about Allen's height and weight, and Auger objected. So, in another report, I heard that Allen and his daughter both crossed the bridge together at least twice. He then showed Zapanta photos of her father. Auger approached the bench, and after the sidebar ends, Luttrell showed Zapanta more photos and asked if specific ones looked like her dad in February of 2017. Zapanta said yes. The gallery did not see the pictures. Auger objected to the photos, saying they were outside the scope. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Of questioning, and there was another sidebar. Goal sustained the objections. The jury asked Zapanta about her visits to the bridge, and she confirms she only visited it and crossed the bridge with her dad a few times. Whew. Sorry, I had to mute you guys for that. That was an epic sneeze. Okay, let me go back to that. The jury asked Zapanta about her visits to the bridge, and she confirms she only visited it and crossed the bridge with her dad a few times in her teens. So the one thing that's kind of stood out to me about that part of this is what a lot of you have been saying about Libby kind of looking like Richard Allen's daughter, and possibly being the trigger. So this kind of ties into that whole amateur psychological profile. So I just thought that was interesting. All right. So the reporter noted Allen was seen smiling as Zapanta left the stand. The next set of witnesses were Shelby Hicks, a realtor who was on the trail on the day of the murders, and Steve Mullen, the former Delphi police chief. Hicks said she took her car for repairs and went for a hike with her boyfriend. They arrived there at 2:30 p.m. and parked in the connector lot. I think that's the Mears lot. She told attorney Andrew Baldwin that there were other cars parked there as well. Hicks said while they were walking, they saw an older gentleman, two girls from school, and a few other kids. She also saw an older man with a camera, and she said hi to the girls from high school. They were there for around 15 to 20 minutes before they returned to her car. The next day, Hicks said her boyfriend wanted to tell law enforcement what they saw, but when they went to police, they were asked to come back at another time. Hicks said she met with law enforcement twice in February and March of 2017. Her cell phone data was never extracted. She later said during her cross-examination that she never walked across the high bridge and left the platform before her friends returned. We'll pause there. Welcome in, Todd. Yeah, we're going to get into the contrast between Dr. Westcott and Dr. Monikawala. That's really what they're arguing about right now. They're attacking his confessions. And I think the most valuable confession for the prosecution is the one that he gave to Dr. Walla. So Dr. Westcott, her whole purpose in this case is to kind of discredit what she was saying. And we'll get into that here in a second. Good to see you, Vegas. You two bad actors. Good morning. Welcome in. The Incognito Gypsy. Yeah, it kind of fits into his proactive countermeasure. It's kind of a pattern of his MO, I guess you could call it. He's like a disorganized person, and then he plays cleanup. He's better at the cleanup than he is at the disorganized part. Well, at least he thinks he is. What's going on, Pipers? Silas, what's going on? Says he has an obsession with the bridge. Doris, welcome in. All right, let's get into Steve Mullen. Steve Mullen was then called to the stand. The defense showed him a list of white Ford Focus SEs registered in Cass, Carroll, and Tippecanoe counties between 2011 and 2017. Baldwin said these were cars similar to Allen's. Prosecutor McClellan objected, but Baldwin continued. Baldwin asked if he knew how many people own cars similar to Allen's in Carroll County and the surrounding area. Mullen said no. Baldwin commented that Mullen created a log of missing interviews, but said Mullen didn't say that at hearings in March. Mullen admitted there was no log at that time, but he has since found it. Right? How convenient. Conveniently. Baldwin asked if Mullen had investigated if there were any mentions of a van on social media. Mullen said no, which Baldwin remarks there were many mentions of a van. And that's not true. I think there may have been maybe one or two. There was one of like not an Econoline van. It was more of like a small U-Haul style. But a lot of us knew that Brad Weber had a van, but nobody ever mentioned a van, so we never, we never tied it to anything. The final testimony from Brad Weber, a Delphi resident who owned the property where Libby German and Abby Williams were killed. Actually, I think I have some videos that were taken, I think this morning, one by Bob Segal and another, I'm not sure of. Let's watch this one. So this is Brad Weber making his way into court today. He looks hungover. At least he doesn't look like a morning person. Here, I have another one too. That was Brad Weber. He testified earlier in the trial that he became frustrated with the court after questioning what he did after work on February 13th, 2017. The reporter noted Weber seemed extremely disheveled on Monday. Defense attorney Baldwin handed Weber a transcript of an interview he did with the FBI in February of 2017. Baldwin then asked Weber about his ATM machine business, which Weber said he made money off of them through surcharges. He couldn't remember how many ATMs he had during 2017. Weber said he attended to his ATMs daily, checking how much money they have, and gets the money from the bank. He said his ATMs were in gas stations, bars, and restaurants, etc. He used a black Subaru to drive around and service his ATMs. He added that on the day of the murders, he went straight home from his other job at the Subaru plant near Lafayette. And the only time I used my van was when I was pulling a trailer. Weber's white Ford Econoline van was brought to question during his previous testimony, as News 8's Kyla Russell had mentioned that Richard Allen kidnapped the girls and became scared after seeing a van. Remember, that's what he told Dr. Walla. So that's why it's so important for Polly Westcott to step in and discredit Dr. Walla. That's what they're trying to accomplish right now. The van has not been directly connected to Weber. Baldwin asked Weber if trespassers ever went onto his property, to which he said yes. He also said he didn't hear any screaming on that day. Weber added he gave law enforcement permission to search his house, but it wasn't on February 13th. And that's where it ends. All right, so that's going to do it for the recap. Let's kind of catch up on the chat, and then we'll get more into this battle between psychologists. That's what I'm going to call it, because that's really what they're turning it into. Thank you, Incognito. Welcome in, Yankee Ghost. SW, Julia. Welcome in, Humanimal. Well, you are on the other side of the planet, so it is good. It's always good to see you. One expert psychologist stated the most revealing and damning confession is to his wife, whom a very codependent person with severe separation anxiety would only want to please, not confess to. Yeah, we're going to look at that. Remember, the only thing that both these doctors agreed on was that Richard Allen suffered from dependent personality disorder. So before we get into that, let's look at the contrast between Dr. Walla and Dr. Westcott. Maybe we should start with Dr. Walla. So this is bits and pieces of an IndyStar article. We'll start here. During those first few months, Allen insisted he was innocent, according to reports. So remember, at the beginning, he did say he was innocent, but he didn't start acting crazy and confessing until he saw his, went through the discovery. According to reports, Walla wrote about her sessions with Allen. Walla wrote in her reports on November 21st, 2022 and December 6th of 2022 that Allen felt he was already treated as if he was guilty and that he did not want to be in prison for something he didn't do. In November 25th of 2022, a report, Walla described Allen as selfless when it comes to his wife, Kathy. This all fits into my amateur profile of who committed, who the bridge guy was, right? I mean, he fits right into it. Not that I know any, that I know what the hell I'm talking about, but it's just very strange. Walla also said Allen was a fragile man when he arrived at the facility. Allen has a history with major depressive disorder and anxiety and showed signs of dependent personality syndrome, a mental health condition that involves an excessive need to be taken care of by others. Allen's condition worsened and suicidal thoughts began around the spring of 2023. On April 4th of 2023, Walla wrote that Allen believed death would bring relief. On July 26th, 2023, Walla reported that Allen's eyes were bulging, although she said she didn't know why. During cross-examination by the defense attorney Bradley Rosie, Walla acknowledged that inmates are meant to be are meant to be in solitary confinement for a maximum of 30 days, which is not true. Some people spend decades in solitary confinement. Allen was in solitary confinement for 13 months, a situation that Walla acknowledged could impact his mental health. I think they should change that to anybody in solitary confinement will be affected. Their mental health will 100% be affected because I believe that it is torture. Why a prison psychologist thought Richard Allen was feigning bizarre behavior. Dr. Walla, who was Allen's prison psychologist when he was at Westville Correctional Facility, said she believes Allen feigned many of his bizarre behaviors he showed while at the facility. On April 10th, 2023, she saw Allen sitting in his cell with his back against the wall naked, raising his arms while talking to himself, Walla testified. Papers, likely pages from court documents, were strewn all over his cell. The bizarre behavior, which coincided with Allen's confessions, continued to escalate. On April 12, 2023, Walla wrote in her report that Allen was clapping and banging on something in his cell. The following day, she wrote that he defecated on himself and was consuming his own feces. At this point, Walla said prison officials ordered Allen to be watched constantly. right? Getting that attention now. Walla also said the bizarre behavior and confessions began shortly after Allen received discovery material, and it's possible his conduct was a response to what he read in the documents. Allen also had little to no sleep since the beginning of April, Wallace said. So that's what the defense is trying to combat there. I think at one point they wanted to spin her into a good defense witness, but even though she is pro defense, let's look at some of these details I have written down here. For Dr. Monica Walla, who is she? She followed the Delphi case on true crime social media and mostly was pro defense. She did not like me, by the way. She used her privilege to search about Keegan Kline. She told Richard Allen that he had a support system on social media. Once again, she was pro Richard Allen. She gave him a book titled Man's Search for Meaning. It's about a guy who survived a Nazi concentration camp. She also said he was faking. And Richard Allen made his most detailed confession to Dr. Walla. It was about the motive, the weapon, the van, the sticks, everything. Now, Dr. Polly Westcott, she was hired by the defense. She's an expert witness. She said that Allen had depression, anxiety when he arrived in jail. And just like Walla, diagnosed Allen with dependent personality disorder.
Testimony is already wrapped up for the day in Carroll County in the trial of the man accused of killing friends Abby Williams and Libby German in 2017. As WRTV's Caitlin Kendall reports, much of the day focused on the mental health of double murder suspect Richard Allen.
A total of 7 witnesses were called to the stand on day 15 in Delphi. The first was Dr. Polly Westcott, a neuropsychologist hired by the defense team to review Richard Allen's mental health records and provide an opinion. She testified that in her evaluation, Richard Allen had an extensive mental health history that started when he was a child. Westcott testified that Allen has suffered from anxiety and depression his entire life. Her mental health evaluation on Allen was that he had dependent personality disorder, meaning that he heavily relies on others to function. She said that disorder can be exasperated when
she don't look like no slouch.
He heavily relies on others to function. She said that disorder can be exasperated when someone's placed in prison. She testified that in her evaluation, she determined Allen was passive, subdued, and afraid of people. And she says people with those personality traits don't usually show aggression or threatening behavior towards others. The defense team called Max Baker next, who showed 2 videos only to the jury. Those videos were of Richard Allen eating his feces and banging his head on the wall. Baker had a heated cross-examination with prosecutor Nicholas McLeland, who questioned his intentions behind the videos played. The prosecutor claiming they were trying to paint Allen as the victim. Baker disagreed. Richard Allen's sister and daughter were called to the stand next. Both testified that Allen never molested them or touched them inappropriately and that they loved Allen but would never lie for him. There were 3 other witnesses called to the stand. 2 of those have already testified previously for the prosecution. We have a breakdown of much more on day 15 at WRTV.com. Reporting.
Okay, so hopefully you can see the difference. One was hired by the defense, doesn't have her own opinion. Dr. Walla was just doing her job, actually had empathy for Richard Allen. Her interest in the Delphi case was 100% pro defense. She even told Richard Allen that he had a support system on the outside. It's very strange. Kind of like, I'm rooting for you, man. And I think she even agreed in some cases that he was in warlike POW conditions. But what they're trying to combat, I think what the defense is trying to get to is that Dr. Walla put the van and put these ideas in Richard Allen's head. like her interest in the case and the fact that she's looking up Keegan Kline, and she's on all these different social media groups talking about the Delphi murders. They're trying to say that she put these ideas in his head. Welcome in. My back hurts. Welcome in. Welcome in.
Hello and welcome. We are decoding legalese with KPRC2 Investigates. These anatomy of a trial videos we're putting together are specifically designed to help you understand the complicated legal jargon you sometimes hear in a court case. After you watch these videos, you'll have a better understanding of those phrases. Hey, look who's here. It's Brian Weiss. He's an attorney. And I've got a question for you, Brian.
I've got an answer for you, Joel.
Rule 702, what the heck is that?
Are you watching Law and Order again? How do you know about
it
Rule
even still
702?
on?
It is in reruns. Rule 702
Look at these two up here. Pure magic between these two guys here.
is pretty important. It involves the admissibility of expert testimony. There's two kinds of witnesses that hit the witness stand. Regular old people like you and I, lay witnesses. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. But we also have expert witnesses. And what Rule 702 says is that as a result of someone's experience, training, skill, knowledge, or expertise, they are able to take the stand with the cloak of being somebody who's like really smart. They're not just entitled
and
to
a
be
fat
cloaked with this
paycheck.
extra special double secret probation knowledge, but they can give opinions in response to hypothetical questions that none of us can. It is the proponent of an expert witness that you've been able to convince the judge that that witness, as a result of all those things that we just talked about, has its specialized training and expertise to allow them to give testimony as to ultimate conclusions. On the other hand, if you're the opponent, you are entitled to something, again, during a process that we call, wait for it, voir dire.
There it is.
Voir dire, to challenge that expert's credibility, qualifications, expertise. And as an appellate lawyer, somewhere down the line, I've had success in claiming that the integrity of a trial has been irreparably tainted because a judge permitted expert testimony from an expert who is anything but. So expert witnesses, Rule 702, big deal.
So is there a legal...
Just a little info there for you. Okay, so what the hell is dependent personality disorder? Now, I just gathered this information from different medical sites online. So feel free to correct me at any point here. What's up, Scott? Okay, people with the dependent personality disorder are more likely to be victims of crime than offenders. But they can become offenders if they are provoked or abused. In particular, they may become violent if they are in an acute catathymic crisis. That's kind of like something that's controlling you, like in your mind, that you can't control. Kind of like, I don't know, similar to psychosis. Some factors that can increase the risk of a person with a personality disorder committing a crime include antisocial personality disorder. When a person with DPD encounters an antisocial personality, the risk of a victim-perpetrator relationship is greatest. Antisocial personality disorder increases the risk of homicide over 10-fold in men and 50-fold in women. Substance abuse. People with personality disorders are more likely to abuse substances like opium, methamphetamine, heroin, and alcohol. Mental health services. Some say that judicial officials should consider mental health services and treatment instead of punishment for people with personality disorders. I agree to that with that to an extent. I think it should be a combination of the two, but the system needs to be fixed for sure. People with DPD are often characterized by a strong fear of abandonment. They may lie about their abilities to get someone else to do things for them. People with DPD may develop due to a history of abuse, childhood trauma, or a life threatening illness during childhood. Let's see here. Dependent personality disorder is a personality disorder characterized by a pervasive psychological dependence on other people. This personality disorder is a long term condition in which people depend on others to meet their emotional and physical needs. Dependent personality disorder is a cluster C personality disorder, which is characterized by excessive fear and anxiety. It begins prior to early adulthood, and it is present in a variety of contexts and is associated with inadequate functioning. Symptoms can include anything from extreme passivity, devastation, or helplessness when relationships end, avoidance of responsibilities, and severe submission. So I guess my only question is this possibly something that Richard Allen was experiencing shortly before Abby and Libby were murdered? Because doesn't this fit into the profile of this killer? Signs and symptoms. People who have dependent personality disorder are over dependent on other people when it comes to making decisions. They cannot make a decision on their own as they need constant approval from other people. Consequently, individuals diagnosed with DPD tend to place needs and opinions of others above their own as they do not have the confidence to trust their decisions. This kind of behavior can explain why people with DPD tend to show passive and clingy behavior. These individuals display a fear of separation and cannot stand being alone. When alone, they experience feelings of isolation, loneliness due to their overwhelming dependence on other people. Generally, people with DPD are also pessimistic. They expect the worst out of situations or believe that the worst will happen. They tend to be more introverted and are more sensitive to criticism and fear of rejection. So, Richard Allen's daughter was getting married. I think she announced that September of 2016. His brother in law passed away in 2016, who was very close to his wife, Kathy. And what I've been hearing from sources is that she was kind of, I don't know, I think she became depressed, I guess, is what I'm hearing after her brother passed away. So I don't know. Did that affect Richard Allen? If he suffers from dependent personality disorder, wouldn't her kind of backing away from him and self-medicating and not giving him any attention, dealing with her own loss of her brother, could that have an effect on Richard Allen if he suffers from dependent personality disorder? I guess is the question. Risk factors. People with a history of neglect and abusive upbringing are more susceptible to develop DPD, specifically those involved in long-term abusive relationships. Those with overprotective or authoritarian parents are also more at risk to develop DPD. Having a family history of anxiety disorder can play a role in the development of DPD. I think that's all I have on that. I grabbed something here from Bob Segal. He says Weber acknowledged he gave a different story to investigators during two separate interviews in February 2017. In one, he said he drove his white van right home from work on the day of the murders. In the other, he said he left work and went to service some ATM machines. So is that a big deal? I always thought that was like a sign that somebody was lying, right? You're being interrogated and now your story starts to change. Isn't that, a sign that you're looking for that somebody's lying? But once again, it could have been a mistake. People have their own motivation for lying or stretching the truth, or take Ron Logan, for example. All he did was lie, pretty much. Laura M., flannel shirt guy. David McCain. Robert says, taking down Crime Night, truth and transparency. Is that other YouTubers? I think Nancy Grace is out for blood. I just ignore them. Yeah, remember, Dr. Westcott she's paid by the defense. So I don't understand how you're going to, who is she going to have allegiance to? The truth or to the person who's signing her checks? Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. I know who killed you. I still don't get the logic of private individuals owning ATM machines. It's weird. I don't know if he owns ATM machines or if he owns the servicing rights. I don't understand really what he's doing there. Wiggity, 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 wiggity. What's up? Welcome in, Emily. Just stumbled across your channel. It's refreshing to see an empathetic channel for Abby and Libby and not their killer. Well, you came to the right place. Did you guys see some of these protesters out there? Before we get out of here, let's take a look at some of this. What in the hell? What the? Let's see. Two of them say no cameras. No wonder. Shame on you, Indiana. This is goal shit. Oh my goodness. Goal shit. I like that. See, because instead of bullshit, it's goal shit. See that? But I did find a good one. Now there's a nice sign. Look, it's even legible. I'm liking that one. What's going on, Emily? It's what happens when no one else can stand you other than your spouse because you are codependent on each other. That doesn't sound like a dependent personality disorder. That kind of reminds me of, when elderly people, when one passes away, the other might pass away shortly after. What's going on, Boston? Oh, yeah, there was a correction put out by Bob Segal. Some of the questions that they asked Richard Allen's daughter, did your father ever molest you? Do you love your father? Would you lie for him? So he put no, that she did not love her father. And that kind of started circulating. So he wanted to correct that and say that she said yes, that she does love her father. Welcome in my pal Sal Vintage. YouTube Bad Actor says Dr. John says this would prove that he was telling the truth in his confessions to wife and mother. Yeah, I think there's a way to prove whether or not you're faking it or not. I think Dr. Westcott put him through a number of tests trying to figure out if he's lying or not. She believes him, but remember, she's paid to say that. It's like, how can you ever take her seriously? That's what she's paid to say. Welcome in, Karen G. Yeah, he mentioned her a lot in his confession, Cindy. Like, leave her out of it. It's like, I don't remember anybody trying to include her in any of it. Like, you're the one who keeps including her. Vegas says, nope, he made up this bullshit with his lawyers because they have nothing else. He sat there in his cell thinking of ways to get him and whatever else. He is fake and 100% guilty. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, cause and effect, right? He did what he did. He went through the whole eating his own, you know what, doing all that so that they can in the future talk about it and use it as evidence. So the defense has been using Richard Allen, he's doing what he does, countermeasures. That's his MO, right? He bucks it up and he shines with, I'm going to cover it up. Look how smart I am. I'm going to cover up my mess by doing anything, by any means necessary, even if he's got to eat his own shit. So that's what we've seen from him. He committed the murders and then he came forward because if he didn't, they would come looking for him. He committed the murders, didn't really plan it out, covered this girl's after that, did what he did at the crime scene, bought him some time. They weren't able to locate them during the search. He was able to get out of there before anybody knew that the girls were killed. It was still a kidnapping until the following morning at 12:15. So he makes a series of bad decisions and then he does his best to clean it up. That's what I'm seeing here. It's his MO to do that. I've confessed, so now I need to clean it up by looking like I'm crazy. Yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on with him, Boston. What's going on, Sybil? All right, guys. I think that's all I have for you today. If there's anything else, you guys can always email me. What's going on, Rain Dancer? Oh, that's another thing I wanted to tell you. Sorry about that. DNA evidence is only left behind, or is left behind by less than 10% of attackers when it comes to murders. 10%, less than 10%. So, less percent of killers out here are leaving their DNA at the crime scene. So, everybody's like, oh my God, Richard Allen didn't leave any DNA at the crime scene. Well, most killers don't. So, just a FYI. Yonder says, Tom was saying Goal arrives and says, good morning, jury. Lovely to see you. Then scowls at everybody else. It's kind of funny. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, make sure you guys hit the like button. We're going to get out of here in just a minute or two. Bad Actor says, time to vote and work. Have a great day at work. And yes, don't forget to vote. Phil Bond, what's up? Shannon S. Shannon says, bleeding hearts who have been brainwashed by the likes of Andrea and others. Well, we're all entitled to our opinions. Agree to disagree. Blue Line, 1991. What's up? I'm convinced he is the bridge guy because that I am still open to hear evidence. Yeah. So without the confessions, the dude was already proven to be the bridge guy. The confessions are just kind of like fuel to a massive fire. Welcome in, Anna. Says, concerned about no DNA. Or saying that Richard Allen is too small, short, old, or weak to commit the crime, accomplish nothing. Nothing there equals innocence. I agree with you. We have like a misconception in our head. But sometimes the reality is much stranger than fiction. Sometimes simplicity is extremely complex in its randomness. Thank you, Angel B. All right, big shout out to Sensei for the 10-month flex. Thank you for supporting my channel the way that you do. It means a lot. Let's welcome Stacy Skinner to the Sleuth Crew. Should have something going for members only tomorrow. Keep a lookout for that notification. Thank you to my mods for keeping the chat chill. And all of you who continue to donate to the Cash App and to the Venmo. I appreciate you guys. I couldn't do this without all of your support. We are 100% crowdfunded, so if you keep supporting me, I will keep spending the time and building this platform for us. Your little safe space in this crazy true crime community. So you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you again real soon. Peace.